Hello, and thank you all for joining today's webinar on the topic of using operational hold codes in CloudSuite Distribution. My name is Julie Zindel, and I'm the VP of Client Experience here at Central Data. We're bringing these informative webinars to our client base throughout this year as a value-added benefit to our clients. Next month, on October 12th, we will have a session on another topic. We'll be doing a brief tutorial on doing data purges. So please watch for the opportunity to register for that session. A few housekeeping notes. Please note that we have clients attending today that are on various levels of SXE, Web UI on-premise, and CloudSuite Distribution. We'll be showing the web user interface only, and we are working in cloud, which is has the latest updates applied each month. So that means we are on the latest version of CloudSuite Distribution. The lines will be muted until our Q&A time at the end, but if you have a question, please put it into the chat or the questions section of the meeting, and I will monitor the chats as they come in. Let me introduce our presenter today. Anna Swenson is one of our senior level financial consultants. She provides consulting and training for both SXE and CloudSuite Distribution. She spends a great deal of her time assisting our support team, helping our clients solving out of balance issues, and digging into any accounting process questions, and provides valuable advice regarding best practices. She has been instrumental in the success of many of our CloudSuite distribution projects and AP automation projects here at Central Data. So with that, let me turn the presentation over to Anna.
Fantastic, thank you, Julie. I couldn't have written a better introduction to myself. Wow, very flattering. Let's see. Hopefully I can get the right screen on here.
It looks good.
Got it? Fantastic, perfect. Well, thank you all for joining me. This is one of my favorite topics ever since this came out within the last couple of years here in CloudSuite Distribution, and it's really around those hold codes. And just from a basic standpoint, what is a hold code in the system? A hold code is a way that we can stop the life progression of a sales order. So depending on where that sales order, that customer sales order is in its life, right? Maybe I'm just entering it now and it's an ordered stage and it goes on hold because of credit limits. Or perhaps I picked it and I'm trying to ship it and it goes on hold because the credit card fails. It stops the processing of the sales order. And so, we have a few codes that are system defined, some here in the administrator options. If I go to documents and sales orders and entry settings, come on, work with me. There we go. Nope, sorry, approval process. I always get the wrong one. There's a few settings here of what we call system used hold codes that are hard coded into the functionality of CSD and SXE. These are not CSD specific if you're on an older version, although the operational hold code functionality is. It wasn't released until I believe it was November 2020. So if you're on an older version of SXE and watching this, something to look forward to when you come to cloud. But in any case, we have a few settings here where we can set what codes we want the system to use. Just maybe when we enter an order, perhaps our business process requires us to put every order that comes in on hold for a sales manager to review before we release it on its way. And in that case, you have this ability to do that. Same thing with returns. This is an often underutilized feature, is that, if you want somebody to review returns before they get processed through, you can actually set a code so that new returns go on hold until somebody gets a chance to review them. We have amount holds, we have margin holds, and of course we have credit card holds. And then the ever popular, no choice really, is the little h for the credit hold, right? If something goes on credit hold because of the limits or the hold period that we have for our customers set on the customer record, that pops up as a little h. So those are what I like to consider the system defined codes, right? They're triggered by some setting in the system. And maybe we don't set margin plus or minuses. Maybe we don't set order min or maxes, and we never encounter these codes. Most likely you do encounter the little h though. That's definitely one everybody probably knows well. But aside from those that the system would encounter, you might have some that are unique to your business process. Perhaps you have a sales team and they want to put an order on hold because maybe they're waiting for some more information from a customer. Perhaps they don't necessarily want to stop picking, but there's a possibility the customer might add something else to that order. And so they put that order on a Z hold or a C hold or something that means something to them, an exclamation point. Really anything other than a Y, capital or lowercase, anything other than a Y puts an order on hold. So the operational hold code functionality kind of addresses that need for these external, extraneous, unique to you hold codes, but it also adds some functionality and some visibility to these wonderful system codes that we all know and love so well. Now I do have a little document here that I meant to pull up, and I apologize so you get to see my, my horribly messy desktop. But I like to talk a little bit about the difference between the operational hold code and the legacy, what we call the legacy hold code functionality. So the legacy hold code being the way that it is by default in the system, the way that you're used to hold codes functioning up until November 2020 when this was released. With legacy hold codes, I can only have one hold code on an order at a time. So if an order is already on hold for credit, I can't have a salesperson overriding that credit limit hold and putting their own hold on there. They might have the security to do so, but that would be bad form because now I'm essentially approving the credit limit hold, replacing it with the sales order hold, the customer service hold. But when I approve the customer service hold, there's no record of that credit limit hold. So one hold on an order is a little bit limiting. Whereas with operational hold codes, I can have multiple holds on a particular order. So the order might go on credit limit hold because that's how the customer is set up, but perhaps me, the salesperson, I'm still waiting for some sort of answer. So I can put my hold on there, not interfere with the credit hold. AR can go through, or credit management can go through and approve the credit hold and still leave my hold on there. So now they function independently. There's a much more visible audit trail that we'll see here with the operational hold code functionality than there is with the legacy hold code. So operational hold code will show us the entire history of the order, when hold codes were put on the order, who approved them, when they approved them. Whereas with the legacy hold codes, you really just get that last approval, so, which has been limiting in some cases. The other thing about the operational hold codes is that it creates a system-defined table of codes. So I can set a specific code, maybe for customer service questions, maybe I do a C, uppercase C, and I can set a specific description that says, awaiting customer or customer service hold. And that is consistent and defined, and everybody knows what it means because it's going to show in the system. Whereas with my legacy hold codes, if I put a Z hold on an order, you probably don't know what that is unless I put some notes on the order. So, and I can use anything, right? A Z, a question mark, a exclamation point, and it really only means anything to me. So that's one of the downsides of those legacy hold codes. The approval security for both, you do have the ability to limit who can approve what codes in the legacy hold code functionality, but it's by a comma separated list. Whereas with the operational hold codes, because we're working from that table now, there's an actual table that you say, this code's allowed, this code's allowed, this code's not. So it's very defined and not just kind of this listing, a separated, comma separated listing on the operator setup. So we'll see that as well in this time frame today. And lastly, and one of my most exciting things that I get all excited about is you have the ability with the operational hold codes to leave a comment. I believe it's a 60-character field. So in addition to the standard description that you set on the SASTT table code value for operational hold codes, I also get to leave an additional comment. So I set my C hold for customer, awaiting customer or customer question, and then I can say in my comments, may add another product, waiting for approval, confirmation from Jake, or whatever the case may be, so that whoever looks at that order can see, oh, they put a C hold on because they're waiting for Jake. So I get excited about weird things, and that's one of them for sure. So let me go ahead and pop back into CSD. So when we talk about turning on this functionality, because by default, when you come into CSD, whether you are a new tenant coming in or you've been existing in the system, Infor did not turn this on by default because there is quite a bit to turn it on and get it set up and get it going. So they didn't just want to flip the switch and have at it. So you get to make the choice whether the legacy hold code functionality is perfectly fine for you, or if you want to take advantage of this new functionality. So first things first, in the admin options here, in documents and sales orders, in the entry settings, there's a new checkbox here for use operational hold codes. So this has to be selected in order to enact this functionality. And if you are enabling this functionality for the first time, you want to select it, save it, log out and log back in to allow those AO options to load into the tenant as you're logging into CSD for the first time. Excuse me. Once you have that functionality turned on and you've logged out and you've logged back in, now you can go set up your codes. And that is going to be in the table code value setup where many of the system's options and tables are defined. So SASTT if you're playing the acronym game. There's going to be a new table here called operational hold code. And this is where not only the system defaults will come in, so by automatically when I turned on the functionality and I logged out and logged back in, anything that was defined in AO or defined in a few other areas in the system will show here because they're hold codes. So we have the A for the credit card authorization, of course the little H for the credit hold, F for CC, so all those system defined. And then we have the ability to add our own. So here I've added that C hold code for customer info needed that I've kind of alluded to in this session thus far. Perhaps maybe I need a new one, and I can say it's going to be hold code S, and maybe there's some shipping info needed, right? Whether it's a rate or an address or maybe a particular time, something to allow our shipping department even to communicate and hold an order before they allow it to invoice. And really that's all there is, the hold code and then the description. All right, so now that's included in my table. Now, when I do add new codes or I turn this functionality on for the first time, there is operator security that we also need to consider. So anytime you add a new code, by default, nobody's going to be allowed to approve it. So we do need to go into operator security and allow people security to approve codes. So I'll poke into mine. And this table only shows up when you have this functionality turned on. Of course, just a worthy mention here, we still have settings regarding the legacy codes. So if I do not have the flag to allow override of order approval status set up to yes, I will not be able to I will not be able to approve the operational codes either. So that's got to be set to yes. This limit manage hold codes really only applies now to those legacy codes if we still have some orders with those legacy codes. But that used to be the way that we could kind of limit who could approve an H or a C or an M or whatever. If we put anything in there, it does limit which codes can be approved by this operator. But the new functionality creates a new table in the SASO record, in the operator setup record, under other options. All the way down at the bottom of the screen. Whoops, there we are. So there's this new section here of operational hold codes, and it shows all those codes that were in the table code values that we just looked at. And hey, there's even my new shipping info needed. So perhaps I need to select that and go ahead and allow it. But it's very easy to see that I'm allowed all codes except for the EDI and service warranty, because maybe that's not my area. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And like all operator security, if I change my operator security, I do need to log out and log back in to take effect. So I will do that really quick because you don't need to go all the way out, just a little soft log out here.
So Anna, while you're logging back in, there is one
Absolutely.
question from Victoria. She wants to know if you can make the comment required.
Oh, that's a good question. I
That's
have
what I
not
told her.
explored that. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I would say it may be possible through extensibility, because I know extensibility, the extensions in some fields or in most fields, you can make it a required field. It's not something that's a flip by default, but we can definitely take a look at that and just give you a quick answer. So all about whether or not extensibility can touch that comment or not within that field. So we'll take a look at that and maybe include that in the roundup to the wrap up to this session. Good question. Great question. All right. So one of the other things that I like to talk about in the setups of the hold code functionality, and this really applies to people who are either upgrading from older versions of SXE, have been live on CSD prior to this functionality, or oh, that's it, live on CSD prior to this functionality, is the consideration for orders that were on hold at the time that you flip this flag, because the system does kind of dissect them. You will now have orders that are applicable to the legacy hold codes, like these guys here, if I do a search. Right here. And you will also have orders that are now applicable to the operational hold code. So anything that went on hold after we turn that AO flag on. And there's some differences in the way that the order and the approval type field functions once we turn this functionality on that make you have to treat these orders differently. And so you have two options when dealing with this kind of conversion, if you will. If you don't have that many orders that are on hold at the time that you flip over, and of course you want to make sure that you check all your orders, even without a shipped quantity, to see what you have out there on any hold code possibly. If you don't have that many legacy orders, then you can actually go into order entry, maintain the order, and it will update to an operational hold code order. So you can keep that AH on there, but it brings it into the operational hold code functionality. The other option is that you can continue to kind of run out your legacy hold code. So perhaps you don't go in and touch each one that has a legacy hold code, but you continue to understand that some orders that were entered or possibly went on hold prior to a certain date will be under the legacy hold codes and subject to that functionality versus the new stuff in operational hold codes. So you can absolutely continue to maintain these orders under the legacy hold codes until you get through all of them, if you have too many. So that's a couple of considerations there, but just do keep in mind that it does split how the system handles those based on when you flip that flag. Right. So here we go, meat and potatoes. This is the good part, right? We're going to talk about the functionality. Unless, do we have any other questions at the moment?
There is one that just came in from Jason. And this may play into what you're going to cover next, Anna. So he's asking if there's a hold code that will allow a ticket on hold to still flow through picking and order filling process. They sometimes have a cash customer going on hold and are not allowing an incoming part to fill the order because it's on hold.
That's an interesting question too. So what we would have to understand is why it's on hold. And if it's not really for anything like a credit limit or anything like that, but maybe it was put on hold because I want to hold on to it because I got something I got to do to it later, there's actually some other new functionality that I can touch on very briefly here that's related but separate, but it's this require invoice verification. So if you have an order that you don't necessarily want to put on hold because you don't want it to stop the process from ordered to shipped, but you want it to stop at the point of invoicing. So I can go ahead and ship this order, But invoice processing is going to throw an exception. If I set this flag to yes, it'll throw that exception. It'll prevent this order from invoicing until somebody comes in and flips that flag to no. So if there's certain things that you need to verify on the order prior to it invoicing, if you need it to wait for another piece of information, whatever the case may be, you can use this new require invoice verification flag instead of a hold code, and it will allow the order to move through its process, meaning that we can go ahead and ship it. So potentially I have stuff going out the door when maybe I need some additional information. But that is another option to the hold codes. Unfortunately, with operational hold codes or even legacy hold codes, if there's anything other than a Y, or if there's any active hold code, it is going to stop the functionality. Wherever you are in that life cycle of the sales order, it will stop the next step. So if we're sitting there and we're waiting for that back order fill and that order's on hold, you're right, it's going to prevent that back order fill. So good question, Jason. Hopefully that might be a potential answer for you. All right, so let's talk functionality since we're here. So when I'm using operational hold codes, and I apologize for looking down, I'm looking for the order that I was working with yesterday to save some time. There's a couple things that happen. So you'll notice here that the approval type field becomes uneditable. Say that 10 times fast. In legacy hold code functionality, I can overwrite, if I have security to do so, I could change the Y to a C, to a Z, to an H, whatever the case may be. But this field, I would just enter right into it, which is why we could only have one hold code on at a time. When I turn on operational hold code, what it does is it turns this approval type field, instead of displaying the H or the F or whatever the case may be, it displays a Y or an N. So a Y is the order is completely approved, there's no active hold codes, it'll go right through the system, no problem. Whereas an N means there's at least one active hold code on the order, and it needs to be addressed or dealt with, released, whatever the case may be. So in order to get at what's causing this order to be on hold, or not approved, I should say, is I can get into this inquiry here. So this opens up with the new functionality, and click the little arrow. And it brings me into this inquiry slash really entry, because this is a screen where I can release the hold if I need to, or I can add a new one. So perhaps I'm the customer service agent on this particular order, and maybe I do have a question from my customer that I want to hold this order on. So yep, this order currently is actively on a credit hold because it was generated by OE header create. This customer in particular has all new orders go on hold, so that's why we are on hold. But I can come in here and say, yep, as a customer service agent, I need to put this order on hold as well. I don't want it to go anywhere until I get my answer. So we click create, and now we can select or type in, but I'll just show you the selection here. We can select from the table, define table. I can't just go all willy-nilly making up my own codes, but we can select from the define table now what code I want to put on here. So here I want to do customer info needed. There's my description, and here's my 60 character comment. So I can say, like I said, waiting on Jake. Poor Jake, I pick on him all the time. I still have 45 characters left, but that's enough for now. So here I can click create, and now I have 2 active codes on this order. So you can see who put them on, when they were put on, and then those comments there as well. Now there is no save button here. That's always gonna kind of make us, we're always looking for that save or that update. Just by adding that line to the grid, it is on the order. So I can go back out and continue to maintain my order. Now the nice thing is that anywhere you currently touch an approval type field, so in order entry maintain, in the customer order settings, right, we have the approval type field all the way down here at the bottom, so we have that inquiry as well. If I get out of here and I click finish, and I go into shipping feedback, Again, depending on your security and your personalization, but oops, that's not what I wanted. I know the order's not approved, thank you. Go to detail, and even in the detail here in shipping feedback in the header view, I still have the ability to touch the approval type as well. So everywhere that you can do it with the legacy hold codes, you can do it as well in the operational hold codes. Of course, I can still do it in credit release inquiry and OEIR, but I always like to show the order entry and the shipping feedback just as well. So if I'm in customer service and I say, oh, yep, I got my answer, customer, they told me what they needed, we're good to go. I can do it from here in shipping feedback. I don't have to maintain the order, and I can go ahead and approve my C. So I can release my C, and it captures when it was approved and who it was approved by, and it doesn't get rid of it. It just makes it inactive. I still have that credit hold out there though. So my credit management department hasn't quite taken care of that detail just yet. Now, the other fun thing about this functionality is that it opens up, like I said, the visibility. So in order inquiry, an OEIO, if you're playing the acronym game, there's a new section that gets opened up when you turn on the functionality on the header view. And it's specific just to operational hold codes. So we can see here in the header where we would normally see the little H's, the A's, the F's, the margin holds. Now it's an N or a Y, like I said earlier. So it's an approval type, not approved, or yes, it is approved. And to find out what's behind that N, we can get down all the way down by default anyways, but of course you can personalize this, move it up. But there's a new section here for operational hold codes. And so here I have a code, right? I have all my history. Little n is my fault. I didn't take care of that before we came in, but I have my active H. I have my customer info needed. That's not active anymore, and I can see I approved it. And then of course I have this wonderful unknown code that's out here on my order, probably because I did something wrong. But that's how you can see the history of what's going on in that sales order now, who approved it, the life cycle, no longer just whether or not it was approved at some point and the last person and time to have approved it. So that's kind of a fun thing. And of course, that translates even more into reporting. So if I were to run the order master list on this order, run a new one time, we'll go ahead and take this to view so everybody can see it. And that was 100 and 500. Next, and save. So that same table that we see in order inquiry will also be visible in the order master list report if you run these reports. I'm a constant runner of OERM just because there's all sorts of good information on the order master report. There it is on my other screen here. And if I scroll past the options and through the header, now there's a whole new section on the OERM report that displays that same table. All sorts of fun there. So in order to get that order all the way through, we have to make sure that it gets approved. And so maybe my credit department starts working on their backlog and they come into the credit release inquiry, and I'm going to work on my operational hold codes. There's a couple things here that change when we do the operational versus the legacy. Those who are familiar with the legacy hold codes will probably know and love the quick approval. So if I pop over to legacy, you can see how my quick approve shows up. And of course, that allows me to enter a specific order number and approve it as opposed to working in the grid here. Unfortunately, the offset to being able to have more than one code on an order is that I lose the ability to do quick approval because I have to approve each code individually, and that gets displayed here, and Infor hasn't quite translated that into quick approval. So if I reset and I pop back over to operational, notice that quick approval goes away. but I still have all the other filters available to me if I want to look by a specific customer or warehouse. Perhaps I sort my credit responsibilities by credit manager, or if I want to look at only certain specific hold codes at a time. So let me see. So for that one, we had the hold, there we go, the credit hold. So if I only want to work my credit holds, I can still filter by one or more of those and see just those that are on that H code. Now, I do lose the ability to type in here as well, because again, it's all about one code versus multiple on an order. But I can still select an order or select multiple orders and approve them. Or I can drill into the detail just like I can with the legacy code functionality. Review my orders. Perhaps I'm going to look at the line detail of the order from here within credit release inquiry. Perhaps I'm going to look at maybe my customer information or the transactions or my customer credit exposure. But yeah, these guys are okay. I'm all right with releasing them. So I can either do that from the grid in the last step, or I can do that from here as well. So I can hit my inquiry, see my hold codes, and release my H. Now I'm gonna guess here, and so this is a great little demonstration, because the N is something new that the system popped in on me and I didn't have in my security. Here's what happens when I go to approve it. There you go, big fat error. So you get a nice hard stop if you don't have the security to release it. If somebody thinks they're going to get slick because, hey, I see it, so I can totally do it. Nope, it's going to still give you a good hard stop. So I would need to go into my operator security, add that little N to my operator security, and then that order can be released right on through. In the case of this guy, let's see if we can't approve this guy. Yep, there we go. So I can release him, come back out to order entry, and now this order will no longer have any active hold codes on it. So 1001482. If I go take a look at that in order inquiry, my approval type now should be a Y, which I can see here on the overview, but popping into the header, my approval type now is Y. And of course, again, popping down to the operational hold codes, I can see the history. So it originally went on hold. It went on the H credit hold back in June. Oh my, we really missed the ball on that one. And it was generated by OE header create, which means it's done by the system versus me manually putting it on an H hold. And then of course I approved it today. So that in a nutshell, I tried to give a little bit of time here for some questions, because there's always some questions here. But that in a nutshell is the overview, the setup, and the functionality and the visibility of operational hold codes. I guess one other thing to mention is that Infor has done a lot of work with the event notifications. So there are event notifications that you can set up regarding when orders go on hold, when orders are released, that can help you manage those orders, as opposed to maybe kind of keeping tabs in the grid here, or if you just want notifications to go out when orders are approved, so salespeople know when their order has been approved, maybe they can contact the customer or whatever the case may be. Those event manager notifications do work with the operational hold codes, just as they do with the legacy hold codes. So with that, I believe I probably talked a little faster than I meant to. Are there any questions in the chat, Julie?
There's nothing new. Let's give people just a second to see if they want to type in a question and we can answer it.
Absolutely.
There's nothing in the chat. The two questions we did have, you gave a response to. We have some follow-up to do on one. Yep.
We can even go peek in there at that one while we've got it. So if I go find my operational, get my search, And so the key is whether or not, if I get into that field, I can set that. Let's see. Just kind of curious here. So approval create. Now, this is not something that you would necessarily want to get into, but we're kind of curious to see whether it's actual, just a possibility. So let's see here. I think it's attributes. Yep. So I can mark that field required if you want them to put something in there. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to require them to put something that makes sense, right? We always have someone who skirts it and just puts a character in there or something, and then that would satisfy the requirement, just like customer PO. But you can, through extensibility, make that comment box required.
Okay, great. That answers Victoria's question. Are there any other questions today? Anything else you want to type into the chat before we end? We will be sending out the recording, and there's also a document that I'll attach as well that was the agenda that Anna followed today. So you'll see, the steps she took in that document. So that'll be helpful as well. And as always, we're happy to do one-on-one training with you on any of the new features we show in our webinars. So just submit a ticket to support at Central Data and request someone to work with you, and we can do one-on-one training as well. Okay, Anna, I don't see anything else. So we will end for today. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Anna, for your presentation.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, have a good day, everyone.